Well, thanks everyone. This is welcome to the Richey webinar series. I'm John Gregg. I'm an audit partner here at the firm, and today I'll be covering a couple of topics relative to the MERS quality assurance compliance, and then I'll follow that with the anti-money laundering compliance initiative that is now coming out. So, and then after I speak, Steve Putnam, a tax partner here, will discuss branch compensation, tax traps, and landmines. As everyone knows, MERS is the Mortgage Electronic Registration System. Brief overview of MERS, and then discuss the reporting requirements and independent annual report that's now required to be filed with MERS. And then I'll touch on the conditions of the annual report that's actually the report that's required to be filed with MERS. This actually started last year for the year ended 12/31/2011. But last year, you could do the annual report for quality assurance internally. And this coming year, you have the option of doing it internally or engaging an external service for you. And again, we'll touch on detail as we go along. In becoming a member of MERS, the member eliminates the need to prepare and record assignments. The member company sells or buys investor interest and or servicing rights to another country, or company. The primary value to the seller is to eliminate the cost of preparing and recording assignments. The primary value to the buyer is to eliminate the cost of tracking and storing assignments and to provide best execution to the seller. In addition, MERS reduces post-closing foreclosure costs and lien release costs due to the grounding of the title in the name of MERS. MERS processing that a valid MIN or mortgage identification number fixed in the proper location. MERS is accurately recorded in the county land records as the mortgagee. The mortgage information is accurately registered on the MERS system after origination, assignment, or acquisition of servicing. Beneficial or servicing rights are sold to another MERS member. The seller and buyer update the MERS to reflect the new ownership interests. And that when a loan is foreclosed, paid off, or servicing is sold to a non-MERS member, MERS is released in the county land records as the mortgagee of record. All members are required to have a current MERS System Quality Assurance Plan, or QA plan, using the MERS Corp Holdings template. If you've written your own quality assurance plan, you can complete the MERS Quality Assurance template and then attach your own quality assurance template or plan as an addendum. Plans must be kept on file with MERS Corp. In addition, you must prepare record designated frequencies. And the designated frequencies that remember, servicing less than 1,000 registered loans, it's a quarterly requirement. Now we'll get kind of to the meat of the matter, the annual report and the annual quality assurance compliance procedures that are required to be performed. As a member of your MERS, you're expected to file an annual report. Again, if you're servicing greater than 1,000 mortgages as of March 31, 2012, you're required to have an independent external reviewer file your annual report and do the procedures that are necessary to ensure you're in compliance with the requirements. And that's a service that Richey May here we can perform. If you have less than 1,000 loans being serviced, the annual report can be performed by a person that's in-house in your company, but that person must be an independent compliance person. And LAC members aren't required to have annual reports. The annual report is due no later than 12/31/2012. So most people will be performing the procedures in the fourth quarter of the year, with the report due, as I said, by 12/31/2012. There was a bit of confusing, people thinking it's similar to an audit report where there's it's dated as of 12/31/2012, and then you can, file the report in January after the procedures are done, but that's not necessarily the case. The case is that it must be filed by 12/31/2012 with the procedures necessary to confirm compliance to be performed beforehand. And then there's the email address to where the form is to be submitted. There are multiple conditions that are reviewed to ensure they're consistent with the quality assurance plan. As part of the annual reporting process, the QA plan is reviewed for effectiveness in complying with the MERS requirements. The key items or conditions that are required to ensure follows. The member has in place procedures designed to provide reasonable assurance that it has submitted to MERS all data for MERS system required and conditional reporting fields at the required frequency, which are either monthly or quarterly. A reviewer, whether external or internal, will read through the quality assurance plan to determine the adequacy of the established procedures to ensure the timely and accurate submission of information to MERS. Condition 2, the member has conducted systems for all MERS system required and conditional frequency, where most of the work is going to be performed. The reviewer will sample loans and compare fields for active loans from the company's internal system to the MERS system and from MERS to the internal system. So it's just a comparison to make sure that all the required information is correct in all the required fields and on both. Examples include items such as phone status, borrower name, social security number, etc. And the MERS insurance plan shows all the data that can be looked at. So you can look at the documentation for a full listing. And if anyone needs that information, I can provide that to them. Condition number 3, the required and conditional fields entered in the MERS system on behalf of a member match those values in the members, and discrepancies in remediation activity in the two systems are tracked and monitored in a log that tracks discrepancies, and those discrepancies are monitored and then ultimately, if discrepancies are corrected in a timely basis, and then again that they're monitored on the aging, we'll review the aging report or log, whatever you want to call it, for timely updates. Condition number 4, that the member has in place procedures designed to provide reasonable assurance that it is conducted daily capture of auditing reports associated with new registrations, updates on open item aging reports. Essentially what we're saying here, the reviewer will determine established procedures are designed to provide warning reports are researched and remaining items are tracked. Condition number 5, that the member has in place procedures that are designed to provide reasonable assurance of compliance with the MERS rules and procedures applicable to the MERS signing officer. All MERS members are required to have a signing officer. All signing officers listed should be current officers within the company. All signing officers listed in the corporate resolution should have a current certification, which is either in the test passed or recertified status, and that they have an email address specific to the business address for the signing officer, and all information for the signing officer is current. Condition number 6, the member has monitored its performance against its quality assurance plan and has reviewed the plan at least annually for effectiveness and has revised the plan as necessary. Review of support for updates of the quality assurance plan will be reviewed for compliance with MERS requirements. We would suggest documenting the company's performance against quality assurance plan throughout the year for monitoring activities. Now we're going to talk about the anti-money laundering program. As many of you could be aware, the Bank Secrecy Act, or the BSA, was originally established to prevent money laundering. Its scope was recently extended to include mortgage fraud under the money laundering umbrella. As such, mortgage lenders are required to have an anti-money laundering program and file an annual report. The annual attestation report should include the following items: established internal policies, procedures, and controls in writing based on their own personal risk assessment and additional laws and regulations the company may be subject to. It should make appropriate due diligence efforts to know each customer and investor. The company must also notify or report any suspicious activity to appropriate parties in the form of suspicious activity reports, which we'll touch on here in just a couple of minutes. There must be a designated compliance officer responsible for the effectiveness of the program's implementation. The company must have programs established for all employees involved in the program. The program must be independently tested in order to monitor and maintain the program. Testing must be performed by an independent party. This testing does not need to be performed by someone outside of the company as long as the reviewers are independent of the BSA officer and have adequate knowledge of BSA requirements. Again, this is a service that we can perform. We have an audit program designed to test the again, external should include compliance testing performed. It should meet the basic requirements. An evaluation of the overall integrity and review of the established in the company's policies and reasonableness based on this profile, and again, from company, the type of product, the market you're in. So it's really going to be all over the board. An evaluation of this, an evaluation results, audits or examinations, and progress. Have training for adequacy and appropriate frequency of training. Assessment of the process for reporting suspicious activity reports or SARs. Review of handling of SARs not submitted to law enforcement. Example is your internal software or CIP information, etc. Audit committee, many of you don't necessarily designate. You can also have an equivalent committee, that equivalent type committee that would satisfy that requirement. And the result of the report must be provided to management. It's a lot of requirements. I would like to, and I should have mentioned this presentation, and so it will be emailed to all the, you guys can have this, and I'll also give my contact information. If anyone has any specific questions, please contact me. I'll go into that in more detail. But again, as part of the independent review of your compliance program, the reviewer will determine that a company and monitor compliance with the record keeping and reporting requirements of via money laundering regulation. That's kind of a mouthful, but really what we're saying here must be in writing, approved by the board of directors or an equivalent committee. It must be reaffirmed annually by policy. It must be updated to reflect change in operations. In some items, the company's compliance include are as follows. Control procedures for independence compliance, and that there's a designated personnel, a risk assessment. Such assessment should include such a various type of mortgage could occur and how the company liability and related AML laws and regulations. It can vary from company to company. Customer due diligence. Have procedures to activity. Or when use of information and reporting, and procedures for reviewing and updating the BSA policy. Procedures performed as procedures include but are not limited to officer to determine the duties and responsibilities of the officer and other individuals involved in compliance. Proper training performed for appropriate personnel. And document dates of inadequacy of frequency. And determine that the company maintains relevant documentation for 5 years. And a review of the loan application process. To know your customer attitude. Companies should have a customer identification approved by the board of directors, again, or equivalent, and incorporated in identification accounts and comparison against suspected terrorism. Suspicious activity voluntarily when fraudulent attempts are made to obtain a mortgage or launder money by use of it would be very difficult to determine it from other crimes. That's just on a judgment basis. Reports can be filed voluntarily or they mandatory filings. I believe there's mandatory filing when it's more or less when you know there's a relevant violation of all. Some policies and procedures that should be in place over it. And verify SARs are filed within 30 calendar days. And the filing cannot be delayed more than 60 days after the detection of a reportable transaction, even if the suspect is not identified. Again, I know that a lot of this stuff really applies more toward commercial banking, but you know, it does now because of the regulations apply to the mortgage lenders. If there is a violation that requires immediate detention, make sure that the appropriate law enforcement authority and its primary regulator is notified in addition to filing the SAR. and determine the SAR and supporting documentation, again, is maintained for a period of at least 5 years. And some typical examples of mortgage fraud, and I'm sure you guys are aware of all these and probably even more, is if a customer uses unusual or suspicious identification documents that cannot be readily identified, or a customer finds a tax ID number after previously using a social security number. They have free experience. Customer tries to avoid reporting or record-keeping requirements. Loans are paid off, by third parties or secured by third parties. Employees have lavish lifestyles. There's misrepresentation of occupancy or appraisal and foreclosure. That concludes our presentation over the MERS quality assurance compliance requirements and the bottom line is everyone's subject to these now, or could be subject to these now, and we can help you, getting over the hurdle and testing these and providing, any external compliance services that you may need. And that concludes the presentation. If there are any questions, we can go over the questions now. About branch compensation, tax traps, and landmines. And I'll stick around if anyone has any questions relative to the information that I just covered. A question for both or all three sections really after Steve finishes his presentation, and we can answer any questions at that time. Thank you. Hello, everyone.